The sky above Florida trembled. 60,000 people looked up as a roar shattered the air show. It wasn't the polished scream of the Blue Hawks. It was older, louder, a relic ripping through time. A silver P-51 Mustang dove across the crowd, engine howling, sunlight flashing from its wings. Gasps erupted, phones shot upward. The announcer's voice broke mid-sentence. Then right over the open radio frequency, a voice the world thought long dead. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jessica Marlowe. I am not dead, and today I will expose the truth." Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The sky above Clearwater shimmered, flawless and blue. Naval Base. Clearwater pulsed with noise. 60,000 people crowding the stands, waiting for the Blue Hawks. Music blared. Children waved flags. Cameras panned across a sea of faces. Vendors shouted over the roar, selling caps and toy jets. Reporters rehearsed their lines, lights glaring against sweat and excitement. The announcer's voice carried above it all. "Prepare to witness the Navy's finest." Then the sound changed. It was not the clean scream of turbines, not the thunder of jets slicing the horizon. It was rougher, older, like thunder dragged through steel. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the announcer stuttered, voice cracking. From the far edge of the sky, a silver spark shimmered. It grew larger with each second, sunlight glancing off polished aluminum. The roar deepened, rattling windows along the runway. A P-51 Mustang. The warbird dove across the field, propeller screaming, slicing so low the crowd felt the air ripple against their skin. Gasps erupted. Phones flew upward, hands trembling. This was no part of the schedule. The Mustang climbed, banking sharply over the grandstands. Its wings flashed. Its engine growled, the entire crowd rising to its presence. Then came the voice, calm, female, broadcast on open frequency for all to hear. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jessica Marlowe. I am not dead. I have returned to tell the truth." For a heartbeat, silence drowned the bass. The name fell like a hammer. Jessica Marlowe, the pilot court-martialed for treason 9 years ago. The one branded a traitor, accused of selling secrets, condemned in disgrace. The trial had been public, the scandal explosive, and then, just as suddenly, reports of her death. A fiery crash during a training exercise. No remains ever found. The file was closed. The world moved on. But here she was, alive, flying over 60,000 witnesses. Gasps turned to shouts. Reporters scrambled, their words tripping over themselves. Social media feeds exploded as the Mustang's silver wings filled screens across the world. In the VIP pavilion, Admiral Victor Hale's composure fractured. He had been smiling seconds before, medals glittering on his chest as he basked in cameras. Now his jaw locked, knuckles white against the armrest. Jessica Marlowe, his creation, his scapegoat, had returned. She pulled the Mustang into a sharp climb, rolling effortlessly into a knife-edge pass, wings vertical, body sliding sideways through the air, less than 200 feet from the crowd. A maneuver once thought impossible in a relic like this. The audience erupted in screams. It was reckless, impossible, perfect. Only Jessica Marlowe could fly like that. For Hale, the sight was poison. He had buried her under lies, erased her from history, painted her as the enemy. And now, every camera in the world was watching her rise again. 9 years earlier, she had uncovered what no one was supposed to see: funds siphoned, contracts rigged, witnesses silenced. Hale had turned the accusation back on her, branding her the traitor to protect himself. He had ordered her name destroyed, her career ended, her life erased. He thought it was finished. But Jessica had survived. For nearly a decade, she lived as Rachel Owens, moving from town to town under a false name. a shadow who worked in silence, hiding in plain sight. She spoke little, trusted less, and never stayed long enough to leave roots. The ghost life would have consumed her, if not for Admiral Evelyn Harding. Harding had been her mentor long before the fall. She spent years chasing scraps, piecing together fragments Hale had tried to burn. One night she found Jessica, standing on the edge of disappearing forever. Harding's words were simple. "We know you're innocent, and we need you back." Jessica had tried to refuse. She was done with uniforms, with loyalty, with war. But Harding laid evidence on the table-coded ledgers, stolen transfers, orders signed in Hale's hand. Proof that Hale's corruption wasn't just treason, it was murder. He had ordered men killed, men like Captain Daniel Harlan, Jake's father, who had tried to speak the truth. Jessica had stared at the files for a long time. Rage simmered under the ashes of her exile. Then she gave Harding a single nod, and the plan began. They built their circle quietly, piece by piece. Jake Harlan, a Blue Hawks pilot with his father's shadow in his eyes. Nora Ellis, a combat medic who had seen too many coffins filled by Hale's greed. Walter Briggs, an aging engineer who had preserved files Hale thought destroyed. And Marcus Keene, intelligence officer turned outcast, willing to risk everything. They met in warehouses, their voices low, their maps spread across cracked tables. Every one of them had scars Hale had left behind. Every one of them wanted justice. The plan was madness. Jessica would return not in a courtroom, not in the shadows, but in the sky. She would cut across the Blue Hawks air show with maneuvers no one else could mimic. Walter would release the evidence in real time, flooding the world with proof. Jake would stand in formation, defying Hale's orders if it came to it. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was their only chance. The night before, Jessica had stood before the Mustang in Hangar 12. The floodlights gleamed against its silver body, Tuskegee markings burning red and yellow. Walter pressed something into her hands, a worn leather jacket. "This belonged to your grandfather," he said. "Captain Samuel Marlowe. He flew it against fascists. Now it's yours." Jessica slipped it on. In the pocket, she found a folded page, yellowed with age. Her grandfather's handwriting, "Fear is only the shadow of courage." She closed her fist around the letter. Tomorrow, she would carry it into the sky. And now that tomorrow had come, the Mustang screamed over Naval Base Clearwater, a relic reborn. The Blue Hawks were still minutes from their first maneuver, but already the crowd had seen something they would never forget. Hale sat rigid, sweat beading beneath his collar. His empire had been built on silence. Jessica's voice was shattering it in seconds. She wasn't supposed to exist. She wasn't supposed to fly again. But the ghost had returned, and the world was listening. The warehouse sat on the edge of the bay, its roof sagging, its windows long shattered. Inside, a single bulb swung from a cord, casting shadows across maps and laptops. The air smelled of dust, oil, and tension. Admiral Evelyn Harding stood at the center, her cane leaning against the table. She tapped her finger on the red circle drawn over Clearwater. "Tomorrow afternoon, the Blue Hawks take the sky. That's when we strike." The group leaned in. Jessica Marlowe, leather jacket on her shoulders, stared at the map. Jake Harlan, arms folded, jaw tight. Nora Ellis checked her medical kit again. Every strap buckled. Walter Briggs sat behind his laptop, the glow lighting the creases of his face. Colonel Marcus Keene scanned intercept logs, lips pressed thin. Harding's voice was steady. "Jessica, you'll fly the Mustang into the demonstration. The crowd will see you. The cameras will capture every second. That will buy Walter the window to release the evidence." Walter nodded, tapping keys. Lines of code spilled across the screen. "The moment she clears the runway, my system opens the floodgates. 10 years of contracts, transfers, and recordings. Every senator, every committee, every ally. No one will be able to bury it." Keene flipped to a page of radio frequencies. Air traffic control is already compromised. Hale owns half the tower. I can stall them for 5 minutes. Maybe. After that, interceptors will scramble. He looked at Jessica. That's all you get. She inhaled, slow but firm. 5 minutes is enough. Jake leaned forward, his voice sharp. And I'll make sure you get it. I'll already be in the formation. If Hale gives the order, I'll block it. They'll have to take me down first. The words landed heavy. Everyone knew what they meant. If Jake defied a direct order from the top, his career was finished if he survived at all. Nora broke the silence, voice low. Jessica, if your plane takes fire, if you crash. She stopped, shaking her head. We won't reach you in time. Jessica met her eyes. Then I die telling the truth. Better than living under Hale's lie. Harding closed the map with a hard snap. No turning back. We start at dawn. The group dispersed into their roles. Nora checked bandages and vials of morphine. Walter reran his encryption keys, muttering lines of code under his breath. Keene sent quiet signals through secure channels, laying false trails for Hale's men. Jake sat in silence, staring at the patch on his sleeve, the Blue Hawks insignia his father once wore. Jessica walked alone to the back of the warehouse. A single crate sat there, covered by tarp. She pulled it back, revealing the Mustang's logbook, yellowed pages filled with her grandfather's handwriting. She traced the faded ink with her finger. Tuskegee 332nd. Mission complete. God willing. Tomorrow we live. Her throat tightened. Tomorrow would be her mission. By morning, Naval Base Clearwater swelled like a carnival. Cars jammed the roads. Crowds poured through gates. Security lines stretched for blocks. Loudspeakers blasted patriotic music while vendors sold shirts and flags. Children ran between static displays of tanks and helicopters. Inside the hangar, Walter tightened the last bolts on the Mustang's engine. His hands were steady, but his breath came shallow. Controls balanced. Fuel topped. She's ready. Jess. She'll fly like she remembers. Jessica ran her hand along the fuselage, the polished silver cold under her palm. The Tuskegee markings gleamed in the light, red and yellow cutting bold lines across the steel. She whispered to herself, "This is my last flight." Jake appeared in his jumpsuit, helmet tucked under his arm. His eyes flicked to the Mustang, then to her. "You're really going to pull this off, aren't you?" "I don't have a choice," she said. He gave a tight nod. Neither spoke of what might come after. At the far side of the base, Hale arrived in a motorcade. Cameras flashed as he stepped out in full-dress uniform, shaking hands with senators and defense contractors. He smiled wide, every inch the celebrated leader. None of them saw the fury boiling beneath the surface. The crowd swelled by noon. Families filled the stands, faces painted, flags waving. The announcer shouted into the mic, promising the greatest aerial show the Hawks had ever flown. Behind the scenes, Harding adjusted her earpiece. "Final check." Walter, all systems primed. One keystroke and the files go live. He confirmed. "Keen comm channels open. I can hold them off 5 minutes. No more." Jake already climbing into his jet. He keyed his mic. "On standby." Harding looked to Jessica last. "Ready." Jessica tightened her gloves, pulled her goggles down. Her heart hammered, but her voice was steady. "Let's finish this." Engines roared across the tarmac. The Blue Hawks taxied out in formation, afterburners blazing, their blue and gold bodies gleaming in the sun. The ground shook as they thundered down the runway and lifted into the sky. The announcer's voice rose to a fever pitch. "Ladies and gentlemen, the pride of the United States Navy, your Blue Hawks." The crowd leapt to their feet, cheers shaking the air. All eyes fixed skyward. In the shadow of Hangar 12, Jessica pushed the throttle forward. The Mustang shuddered, propeller spinning, engine snarling alive. She rolled into the sunlight, the ghost stepping into the open. Harding's voice crackled in her headset. "Window starts now. Make it count. Jessica gripped the stick, eyes on the horizon. Her grandfather's words echoed in her pocket. Fear is only the shadow of courage. The Mustang surged forward, wheels screaming against the tarmac. The crowd didn't notice yet. They were still staring upward, watching the Hawks carve perfect arcs across the sky. But they would. They would notice when a silver ghost split their sky wide open. The Blue Hawks thundered into their diamond climb, 6 FA-18s cutting white scars into the sky. The crowd roared, flags waving, children pointing upward in awe. Every lens locked onto the jets, the show unfolding perfectly. Then a voice cut across the open frequency. Calm. Female. This is Ghost Falcon. Requesting permission to join formation. The Hawks' leader stiffened, his hands gripping the stick. Ghost Falcon was a name erased from the rolls, a call sign buried with disgrace. Before he could answer, Jake Harlan's voice cut in. This is Heritage Protocol. Ghost Falcon is cleared. The hesitation was brief but enough. From the eastern horizon, a silver flash appeared. The Mustang screamed into view, its propeller a blur, its wings slicing sunlight like knives. It dove across the field, pulling up into a tight arc, the roar rattling windows. The announcer stammered, words failing. The crowd gasped, some rising to their feet, phones trembling as they filmed. They knew they were witnessing something never planned, never rehearsed. Jessica Marlowe angled the Mustang into a low pass, so close the wind ripped hats from heads. Then she pulled hard into the sky, twisting into a maneuver etched in history, the Marlowe spiral. The Mustang corkscrewed upward, climbing impossibly tight, rolling without losing speed. Only one pilot alive could fly it. The ghost was real. Jessica's voice returned, now on open broadcast, heard in every headset and every newsfeed. 9 years ago, I was accused of treason. The truth is, this Admiral Victor Hale is the traitor. He sold our secrets. He silenced those who spoke, and he will answer today. The crowd erupted in chaos, shouts colliding with gas. Reporters shouted into cameras, their feeds transmitting the confession across the globe. In the VIP pavilion, Hale's face hardened. His smile vanished, eyes blazing with fury. He snatched his comms device, barking orders sharp enough to cut steel. All aircraft. This is Admiral Hale. Ghost Falcon is hostile. Destroy her immediately. Jake's reply came without pause. Negative. Anyone who wants to fire on Ghost Falcon will have to go through me first. His FA-18 broke formation, sliding in front of the Mustang. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Jets clashed in loyalty above them, blue and gold shielding a silver relic. History itself unfolding. One by one, the other Hawks followed. Blue 2 shifted position, then Blue 3, then the rest. A wall of jets formed around Jessica, shielding her from every angle. On the ground, Hale's fist slammed against the table, knuckles bleeding. MacDill command, scramble interceptors, now far to the south. Afterburners lit the sky. 6 F-15s clawed upward, vapor trails streaking toward Clearwater. They came fast, their wings tipped with missiles, their orders written in Hale's voice. The stands fell into nervous whispers. Families clutched each other, sensing the shift from spectacle to battle. The announcer's microphone went dead. His voice caught in his throat. Harding's voice surged across the emergency channel. Attention intercept group. This is Admiral Harding. Authorization Delta 7. Hold your fire until confirmation. The F-15s hesitated. Competing orders tangled in their ears. One from a disgraced admiral. One from a commander who still carried weight. Fingers hovered over triggers. Sweat dripping into helmets. Jessica flew steady inside the Hawk's shield. Her voice remained calm, unwavering. Victor Hale murdered Captain Daniel Harland. He silenced Colonel Tran. He framed me to hide his crimes. The evidence is in your hands now. See for yourselves. Walter's system had detonated minutes earlier. News anchors already displayed files live on split screens transfers, intercepted calls, signatures scrawled in Hale's own hand. Every word Jessica spoke now had proof to match. Phones buzzed in the stands as spectators read headlines faster than the jets above them moved. Hale accused of treason. Whistleblower evidence released. 9 years of lies. Jessica rolled the Mustang into a perfect loop. Climbing directly above the crowd, the sun caught the Tuskegee markings on her wings, red and yellow glowing like fire. A legacy reborn. Flying proof of survival. Inside one F-15, the lead pilot aligned crosshairs on the Mustang. His thumb hovered on the trigger. He hesitated, then saw the markings. The Tuskegee numbers. The symbol of history. His hand trembled. He pulled his finger away. MacDill command. This is Viper lead, he said over comms. We need clarification. I'm not firing on a war hero in front of 60,000 civilians. Hale's voice erupted back, furious. That's an order, destroy her or face court-martial. But now every word was live, broadcast on open frequency. The world heard him attempt to silence truth with missiles. The crowd gasped, horrified, phones recording every syllable. Jake's voice cut sharp. Blue Hawks, hold formation. Ghost Falcon stays protected. Sarah Collins, Blue 2, added hers. Copy. No one fires on an unarmed aircraft telling the truth. Her declaration hit global feeds instantly. Another blow to Hale's crumbling authority. The other Hawks echoed in turn. Voices united, a chorus of defiance. The shield of jets held strong, tighter than ever. Jessica steadied the Mustang, her voice now resolute, carrying across the globe. Hale thought silence would bury us. But silence ends today. Truth will fly higher than lies. The crowd exploded in cheers. Fear and awe tangled together. Flags whipped in the wind. Children cried. Veterans saluted. History was no longer hidden. Above Naval Base Clearwater, the sky had become a battlefield of conscience. Jets against jets. Orders against honor. And in the middle, a silver ghost proving that truth could not be erased. Sirens ripped across the field before anyone saw the flash. A blast tore through the VIP pavilion, heat washing the grandstands, smoke punching into the blue. Panic rolled in waves, shouts, stumbling feet, radios screaming for medics. Hale had played his last card, but the front row was empty of his intended targets. Harding's quiet evacuation had happened minutes earlier. Only his own enforcers lay in the wreckage, coughing, stunned, and exposed. Agents in plain suits broke from the perimeter. Badges flashed, rifles up, orders barked with crisp authority. Hale spun toward a service gate, eyes wild, metals clattering against his chest. 2 agents met him at the fence. He swung once, a desperate, clumsy arc. They pinned him hard to the asphalt, cuffs biting as cameras zeroed in. National security demands ugly choices, he hissed through clenched teeth. To keep the machine running, you grease it. His words landed flat, swallowed by sirens and lenses. Above the chaos, the Mustang lined up on final. Wheels kissed asphalt, rolling true. Propeller feathering down with a sigh. The Blue Hawks taxied in around her, steel and paint drawing a protective circle. Jessica popped the canopy and stood against the glare. The crowd roared, not celebration but release, fear unwinding into raw relief. On the runway edge, Jake ran, helmet under his arm, chest heaving. He stopped a step away, voice tight. My father gets his name back. Jessica nodded, eyes wet but steady. So do you. Within the hour, chain of custody teams locked down the field. Walter's data packages were mirrored to federal servers, allies abroad, and multiple newsrooms. Keen coordinated warrants already queued in sealed dockets. The net began to cinch. By morning, raids hit contractor offices from Arlington to San Diego. Accounts froze, phones seized, shredders unplugged mid-page. Retired officers woke to knocks that ended old careers with new charges. Washington convened under bright lights and sharper questions. Jessica stood at the witness table, right hand raised, rank restored on her sleeve. She swore to tell the truth, and then did. With the same precision she flew. Nora Ellis presented quietly, charts of falsified autopsies and pattern-matched blast signatures. Keene mapped call trees and burner rotations that circled back to Hale's inner ring. Walter clicked through ledgers, voice steady as he translated bribes into lines of code and dollars. Jake described the moment in the sky when obedience and oath parted ways. "The Constitution isn't a suggestion," he said, palms flat on the table. "When an order breaks it, a pilot's duty is to refuse." Hale's defense leaned on inevitability. He spoke of adversaries without rules, of fragile deterrence, of ends that sanctify means. He called his murders containment and his kickbacks operational latitude. Then the committee played a recording, Hale's voice, low and unmistakable, approving an accident for a witness scheduled to testify. Silence hit harder than any gavel. Verdicts followed like storms. Guilty on conspiracy, procurement fraud, obstruction, and murder. Sentences stacked until years became lifetimes. Not everyone went quietly. A colonel bargained for leniency with a server no one knew existed. A consultant traded testimony for a map of shell corporations stretching across oceans. Reforms moved in behind the arrests. Procurement split from command influence, with civilian auditors granted real teeth. Whistleblower protections gained funding, anonymity, and counsel from day one. Jessica's name cleared publicly, not buried in the footnotes. The president signed a full pardon, then pinned a commander's oak leaf to her collar. The Navy offered her the Blue Hawks command, spotlight, legacy. She shook her head once. "I've logged the hours I needed," she said softly. "My next mission is keeping others from being erased." The Marlowe Institute for Military Integrity opened in a narrow brick building 3 blocks from the Capitol. Encrypted hotlines lit up within days, then weeks, then always. Lawyers, analysts, and medics filled halls that smelled of coffee and printer paper and resolve. Nora ran a clinic on the 2nd floor, treating injuries you can't scan but must not ignore. Walter built a data lab downstairs, teaching young analysts how to make numbers testify. Keene became the Institute's quiet compass, what to send, where, and when it matters most. Harding retired to a modest cottage near the water. She walked at dawn, kept her phone close, and answered when it rang. "Victories taste better," she said, when shared quietly. Jake took the Blue Hawks and rewrote the pre-flight brief. Along with fuel and weather, he added 5 minutes on lawful orders and moral courage. Pilots listened, some nodded, all understood. Academies revised syllabi. Case studies of the Clearwater Day replaced sanitized hypotheticals. New lieutenants learned the difference between loyalty and complicity before they learned parade turns. A year later, the Mustang hung above a museum floor, polished to a mirror gleam. Kids stood underneath, mouths open as docents pointed to red and yellow stripes. A plaque didn't list battles. It listed principles. Time moved, as it always does. Cases were won, some lost, none ignored. The Institute kept a wall of names, those who stepped forward and were still standing. 10 years from Clearwater, the base gates opened for a different crowd. No vendor tents, no jet smoke, just dress uniforms and quiet shoes on concrete. A memorial stood cool in the shade, chiseled letters catching morning light. Captain Daniel Harlan's name sat at the center. Beneath it, a second granite slab honored the living who refused the wrong order. Among them, Commander Jessica Marlowe, not fallen, but recognized. Jake traced his father's letters, thumb lingering in the groove. Jessica stood beside him, the silver in her hair catching the sun. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. Cadets gathered at a respectful distance, caps tucked under their arms. They had watched the footage in ethics class. The day jets chose conscience. Now they stood in front of stone and understood it was not myth. A bugler played, flags dipped. The breeze moved softly, as if careful not to touch the names too hard. Reporters waited outside the gate and stayed there. The ceremony belonged to families and those who knew the weight of orders. Some moments are too clean to sell. Afterward, Jessica walked alone toward the museum. The Mustang hung above her, quiet, patient, lighter than it had looked in war. She could still feel the stick in her hand and the letter in her pocket. She looked up into the canopy's reflection and let out a long breath. "The truth doesn't stay buried," she whispered, voice more promise than prayer. It was not for the crowd in an era, or the cameras, or even the past. It was for the next voice on the hotline, for the pilot in a ready room who would hear a wrong order and pause, for the young analyst learning that facts can fly farther than fear. Light poured through high windows and ran down the Mustang's skin. The red and yellow stripes glowed, the metal warm with memory. Steel cannot live, but it can remember for us. Outside, the sky over Clearwater was a clear, forgiving blue. No smoke, no sirens, just air enough for anyone ready to rise.